Rob Reiner's career has always rested on a quiet but radical belief that people can still talk to one another even when they disagree. In an industry often driven by spectacle, his films returned again and again to conversation, to moral friction, and to the fragile space between opposing viewpoints. Whether through friendship, romance, or courtroom confrontation, Reiner trusted dialogue as cinema's most powerful tool. His stories rarely shouted. They listened. That sensibility made his work feel humane rather than heroic, grounded rather than grandiose. Reiner never positioned himself as a mythmaker. He was more interested in observing how ordinary people negotiate loyalty, fear, love, and conscience. That commitment gave his films a durability that outlived trends. While audiences changed and politics hardened, the emotional rhythm of his work remained intact. At its core, Rob Reiner's cinema was never about certainty. It was about the courage to stay engaged. Growing up inside storytelling, Rob Reiner was born in 1947 in the Bronx, New York, into a household where storytelling was daily practice rather than distant ambition. His father, Carl Reiner, was already shaping American television through comedy that blended laughter with intelligence. Yet Rob's childhood was not a parade of privilege. It was backstage, observant, and disciplined. He learned early that humor carried responsibility, that timing mattered, and that words could soften difficult truths. Outside the home, however, he rarely felt fully anchored. At school, he was the industry kid without celebrity, the observer rather than the center. That distance sharpened his awareness of social dynamics. He watched how authority functioned, how people defended themselves, and how conflict revealed character. Living under the shadow of a brilliant father created admiration mixed with restraint. Rather than imitate Carl Reiner's style, Rob quietly resolved to find his own voice, one less comedic and more conversational. Finding a voice through television. Reiner's early years in television were defined by patience rather than instant recognition. He appeared in small roles across popular shows, absorbing rhythm and restraint without claiming attention. These brief appearances taught him something essential: how to exist within a frame without dominating it. That instinct later became central to his directing style. His real transformation came with All in the Family in 1971. As Michael "Meathead" Stivic, Reiner stood directly opposite Archie Bunker, embodying generational and ideological conflict. The role placed him at the center of America's cultural arguments, forcing comedy to confront racism, war, and social change. Michael was not perfect, and Reiner allowed that imperfection to remain visible. The discomfort audiences felt became the show's strength. Through this experience, Reiner learned that storytelling did not require likable answers, only honest tension. It was a lesson that would guide his entire career. Stepping away from the spotlight, despite the enormous success of All in the Family, Reiner recognized the danger of stagnation. The role that made him famous also risked defining him permanently. After 8 seasons, he made the difficult decision to walk away. Leaving television's peak meant surrendering security for uncertainty, a gamble few actors willingly take. Hollywood viewed sitcom actors seeking directing careers with skepticism, and Reiner knew the odds. Yet his ambition was never about control for its own sake. He wanted authorship. Co-founding Castle Rock Entertainment allowed him to protect creative choices rather than negotiate them endlessly. His directorial debut, This Is Spinal Tap, embraced risk fully. Improvised, unconventional, and misunderstood at release, the film failed commercially before becoming a cult landmark. That delayed recognition revealed something crucial about Reiner's instincts. He was willing to be early rather than safe, trusting time to complete the conversation. Memory as moral landscape. With Stand By Me in 1986, Reiner revealed a new dimension of his storytelling. Adapted from a Stephen King novella, the film avoided horror to explore memory itself. 4 boys searching for a body became a meditation on friendship, loss, and the irreversible passage into adulthood. Reiner resisted manipulation. He allowed silence, stillness, and reflection to carry emotional weight. Childhood was not romanticized, but honored for its fragility. Audiences responded deeply, recognizing their own histories within the film's quiet moments. Stand By Me proved that Reiner could translate internal experience into universal language. It was not about spectacle, but recognition. The film's lasting power came from restraint, from trusting viewers to bring their own memories into the frame. This approach would define Reiner's most enduring work. He didn't explain life, he reflected it back gently but without illusion. Romance, wit, and emotional honesty. Reiner's exploration of adult relationships reached its peak with When Harry Met Sally in 1989. Rather than treating romance as destiny, the film examined it as negotiation. Conversations unfolded over years, shaped by timing, vulnerability, and misunderstanding. Reiner's direction favored accumulation over climax, letting intimacy emerge gradually. Humor was sharp but never cruel, revealing emotional truths beneath laughter. The film redefined romantic comedy by refusing idealization. Its most famous scene was not included for shock, but for honesty. Reiner understood that humor often masks loneliness, and allowing that truth on screen gave the film its resonance. The success of When Harry Met Sally was both commercial and cultural. It endured because it respected complexity. Love was not a solution, it was a process. That belief aligned perfectly with Reiner's lifelong trust in conversation over certainty. Conscience and power on trial with a few good men. In 1992, Reiner brought his fascination with moral conflict into institutional space. The courtroom became a stage for competing definitions of duty, loyalty, and authority. Rather than glorifying power, the film interrogated it. Reiner's direction was deliberately restrained, allowing dialogue and performance to drive tension. The confrontations were intellectual as much as emotional. The film's success confirmed Reiner's versatility across genres, but more importantly, it clarified his thematic consistency. Whether childhood friendships or military ethics, he was always asking the same question: what happens when belief collides with responsibility? A Few Good Men marked the height of his professional influence, but it also cemented a pattern. Reiner was not interested in comfort. He wanted audiences to sit with unresolved questions, even after the credits rolled. Public voice and personal cost. In later years, Rob Reiner became increasingly outspoken in political life. For him, this was not a departure from storytelling, but an extension of it. The debates he once framed through characters now unfolded without narrative distance. Social media removed the protective layer art provides, exposing every statement to immediate judgment. To supporters, his voice reflected civic responsibility. To critics, it felt confrontational and relentless. The shift altered how his public image was perceived, sometimes eclipsing his cinematic legacy. Yet Reiner never claimed neutrality as a virtue. He believed silence could also be a choice with consequences. This stance carried personal cost, drawing criticism that blurred boundaries between art and activism. What remained consistent was his refusal to disengage. For better or worse, Rob Reiner continued to believe that dialogue, even heated dialogue, mattered more than retreat. Love, partnership, and stability. behind Reiner's public life stood a quieter foundation. His marriage to Michelle Singer Reiner offered stability during decades of professional intensity and public debate. Unlike earlier relationships shaped by competing ambition, this partnership was built on balance. Michelle maintained a private rhythm that grounded family life away from constant exposure. Together, they raised children and navigated the pressures that accompany public visibility. As Reiner's political engagement intensified, that domestic stability became increasingly important. Family offered a space without performance, without the need to persuade. It allowed him to remain functional amid criticism and fatigue. This balance did not eliminate conflict, but it prevented fracture. In many ways, Michelle's quiet presence represented the counterweight to Reiner's public intensity. It was a reminder that not all forms of influence need an audience, and not every conviction must be broadcast to matter. A legacy that resists simplicity. Rob Reiner's legacy cannot be reduced to a list of films or political statements. It lies in a consistent moral posture that valued engagement over certainty. From All in the Family to Stand By Me, from romantic negotiation to courtroom confrontation, he returned to the same essential belief: that truth emerges through friction, not avoidance. His career moved across genres without losing coherence because it was anchored in human behavior rather than style. Reiner never promised answers. He invited participation. That invitation sometimes unsettled audiences, especially as cultural divisions deepened. Yet discomfort was never accidental. It was the point. His films endure because they refuse to tell viewers what to think, only what to consider. In an era increasingly shaped by extremes, Rob Reiner's work remains a reminder that conversation itself is a moral act, and that storytelling still has the power to hold opposing truths in the same frame.